that there are a great many tarot decks, as you probably know. Everybody and his brother has come up with one. The Jungians have tended to be sort of purists about staying with the Tarot de Marseille because it was the original of the oldest deck. The other decks are fascinating and will be fun to explore. And I think there may be, I know that Dr. Auer has a Jung deck, and I think Sharon may have one as well, which is very elaborate. There's the famous Wade deck, which most of you probably know better than, and the Crowley deck, which a lot of people use. So there are a great many decks. I just simply have stayed with my own personal meditations with this deck, although I will admit to you that I have some other decks hidden in a drawer. Are we about ready to go? Because
yeah, I am.
she actually
I've just got to find. Here we go. Yay! Hold on.
Look like this is called Part 2. Can you believe that?
Sorry about that.
Come on. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Don't. We're going to start off. Basically, I'm going to talk in this about 20 minutes now on a possible way of understanding the lesser arcana, that is not the major trumps, and a possible layout which might be useful and interesting. And if there's time, we might play with it together and ask a question of some sort. First off, over there? Okay, cool. And you have this on a sheet. The lesser suits, there are 4 suits in the lesser arcana. Jung did not identify them this way, so this is Johnson, okay? But I don't know why he didn't. I can't imagine why he didn't see them as the 4 functions. Just beyond me. But he saw them as feminine and masculine, and I think that's accurate, but it just didn't do that. But anyway, you got the first suit is Cohen's, and that represents money, the female. It is a female oriented card. Non-rational, that is to say non-rational in the technical sense of Jung. There are rational and non-rational functions of the ego. The rational functions are feeling and thinking, and the irrational functions are sensation and intuition. So it's sensation, a sense of reality. And I have the classic line, sensation tells you that something exists. Sensation tells you that something is. It's learning through the senses. The second suit is cups. It is also female and represents the feeling function. That's Johnson, not Jung. But feeling tells you whether it is agreeable or not. Feeling tells you what the value of something is, what it's worth to you. Third suit is swords. It's masculine, it's air, it's full of spiritual lights, it's aggressive. It's the thinking function. Thinking tells you what something is, what it is, definition. The fourth suit is wands. That's the highest of the lesser arcana, and it represents intuition, wisdom, and wisdom through suffering, I think. Intuition tells you, it says, from whence it comes and where it's going, its possibilities. Intuition tells you what something might become. Then when you get to the lesson, the card values here, we'll just run this through real quick. Aces represent the ideal, the fulfillment of an attitude. But in some way, in my view, it's too beautiful. It's somewhere a little bit hollow. The ace is a hollow card in a tarot deck. Looks to me hollow. It needs to be replaced by some new aspect. The ace, to me, looks for some further development. I hope there's some real tarot experts here who would want to argue with me about that. We'll have time to do that later on. But that's just what I think. I'm always kind of scared of things when it's come to this an ace that's like top of the line. It says that there's somewhere else to go. The low numbers, of course, 2, 3, 4, and 5, suggest different degrees of expression of the normal instinctive function, whether it's swords, wands, coins, or cups. 8, 9, and 10, the coins, shows a highly developed quality in the sense that the coins, it's a material quality, it's strong. 9 is 3, 3. 9 is one of the most dynamic numbers in the basic first 10 numbers. And it's 3, 3. It represents a very dynamic development within, while 10 is the fulfillment, obviously, of 9. Now, the 2 of coins is very special. It has a special position, and it's painted in a very special way in this deck. It has the name of the publisher written on it. The ace of coins is hollow, but the 2, in regard to the lesser trumps, is the lowest card. It is full of life and possibility. It offers in its duality a development. It is a creative card. In all suits, the 2 represents the possibility of development. Can you show that? Go back to the 2. See, he's done, when Romig started this, I did this back in 1748, and again in 1930. He puts his own publishing thing there. And that shows that that's a very special card in the deck. Okay? I hope you're saving the question. In a sense, with this material, there may be some things that we can talk about together. There are 4 figures. If you can go to the next card, Sue. There are 4 figures in the lesser. No? Back to the... 4 figures. 4 figures. Thank you. That's it. Perfect. Got it. The 4 figures in the tarot deck, in the lesser arcana, are the king, the queen, the knight, and the page. The page is the page of the clerk, or the valet, as he is in the French, brings news and represents unfulfilled projects. The cavalier, the knight on horseback, represents success for the moment. But of course, what kind of success can there be, whether it's tarot or the psyche or life itself, other than for the moment? I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. Success is momentary. The cavalier brings that. The queen, it represents the mother aspect. And for men, that's an anima aspect, and for women, it's an enormously emotional aspect, a good, positive card for relationship, for projects, and all that. That's the queen. And the king is the inverse of the queen. For a man, it's a positive masculine aspect, and for a woman, it's the animus aspect. It represents fulfillment in a useful way, but it can have a negative meaning, the king. Think about that. A negative meaning, because it may represent, again, a block to further development. If you become the king, where is there to go, you know what I mean? So it can be a block to further development. Okay, let's talk about the layout. The layout, as you can see, I'm probably not talking to here. There you go. That doesn't matter. The layout, as you can see, is really the houses of the astrological signs, of the astrological chart, zoological chart. Beginning with 1, which is
Yeah.
yes.
1, 8, 1, 2.
Well, I wouldn't know how to do it. If you guys all these science guys, let's do that. Down.
Not you go.
Is there something I can do with the third hand?
Don't walk. Don't walk, John.
I've always walked around life. The first house is the house of the first house of the zodiac, which is an aspect of the ego, general appearance, initiative, the start of life, and that sort of thing. The second is there. That's the an attitude toward the world. It really is the house of money, belongings, property, your worth, or your self-worth. The third house is the house of easy intellect, sort of short communication, local travel, and brothers and sisters. Third house, right there. Local travel is it. The fourth house is the house of parents, of your roots. And it's family, it's where you came from, it's the womb of the mother, the early of your early childhood experience, family. The fifth house is a house of, basically I've always seen this as a house of playing around. It's a house of creation and love and gambling and love affairs and children. House 6 is the house of health, disease, work, service, and pets. Andy's in 6. 7 is the house of marriage and partnerships, agreements and treaties. 8 is the house of death and rebirth, the house of transformation and sex, of committed relationships of all kinds, as opposed to number 5. 9 is journeys, long journeys, depth study, religion, philosophy, psychology, foreign travel, higher education. 10 is your career or your social status, profession, your position in the world, your authority. It also has something to do with the father. As you know, it's the father that's sort of the mother that introduces you to life itself, and the father that introduces you to the larger world if they get it right. I've always said if your father gets it right, he teaches his sons that they've got what it takes. And if he's so competitive with the father, with the sons, he probably doesn't get that lesson across. But that's the 10th house. Friendship in house number 11 has to community, group friends, clubs, so forth. The last house is a very interesting house, the 12th house. You probably know more about this than I do. But it always seems to be a strange mixture of introversion and isolation and prison and mysticism and seclusion and retreat. And somehow I don't associate retreat with unknown enemies, but they all get stuck in the same 12th house. So when you're laying out the minor arcana, here we go. When you lay out the minor arcana, we'll shuffle the deck, lay out 1 through 12, and interpret them in light of the number of the card and the suit. And in this way, the small trumps give you a general constitution of the person or body regarding the concern of the moment that you're casting the thing about. Now, the middle part, is there some words there? No words. Doesn't have to be. All right, that's good. We did the small trumps already. And you've also got it in. Well, let's go somewhere else. Have you got another? That's good. Oh, small trump. Can we do the small trump? Yep. Here's the layout in the script. That's perfect. That's it. In the center, in your picture, everybody got a picture of that? You got your 7 major trumps. And you begin by putting 4 out on the morning, noon, evening, and night. the center, you have three, which is past, present, and future. And the future is the result of the process. So that's a very important card, that third card down there. That's good. If the magus, well, let me go ahead and say, the outer quadrangle presents the general aspects of the individual situation. Inner trinity presents, that's the past, present, future bit, shows the specific individual problem of this person at the moment, and shows the actual problem at the moment. So that you've got the general constitution around the edges, the general situation in there, and then the actual specific individual problem and its solution in the middle. Now there's nothing magic about that outlet. It just simply constitutes a kind of mandala, like yantra that you can look at and see. But if the magus card comes up, that's very important. And you put it in a specific position down at the bottom. And you mark carefully where it came from. For example, if it came up at noon, the specific moment of the special attention and importance is at that point. So you mark well the place that you take out, do not do. Put it there if it comes up. Also you got, in terms of the, you count the number of coins, sword, baton, and cups, and write each total right down there on the side. Okay? Looking at this from the standpoint of psychology, it shouldn't seem too irrational. We offer the cards in a mandala-like structure, which can bring us into direct contact with the problem. We shouldn't be too astonished if some sense comes out of it. We see them as a projective test to crystallize a half-conscious and half-unconscious insight. There is too much sense in the cards and structure to assume otherwise, I believe. I find we often misunderstand the definition of synchronicity. It's not a miracle produced by our emotions, but then it would be causal, and not an acausal aspect in our lives as human beings. If I'm full of complexes, and believe me, I am, I project them into life, and then life itself becomes full of coincidences. If I find some sense in the cards, and not just pure projection, I think we can find in it a new insight. The world is then changed, new possibilities emerge, and we can meet the world with this new sense. We meet the kaleidoscope of the world and we find in it some sense. Our nebulous mind is sharpened and clear in meeting the world of fantasies. It is actually us who comes out of the dark and not the cards. Okay? The mental level, probably most of you psychologists know Pierre Janet's oscillation of the mental level, the nouveau mental. Our mental level needs to be lowered, I think. And we get more projections, we sort of lower things down, get more in contact with the unconscious, and we project a little more, and we get some new insights. Now, is there a parapsychological aspect to the cards? Does the emotion we're in affect the way the cards fall? This would certainly be causality of a yet unknown type. I've seen some strange things happen in such readings, but it's dangerous to view this in a superstitious way. We use the cards, I think, as a projective test, knowing that there may be more behind it. The tarot offers an individual mandala of the moment for the making of a contact with the central structures of the psyche. And with that, I would like to, I want to be careful of time, because I don't give everybody time to talk. I would love to entertain some questions, if I may, and some thoughts and some reactions. And then maybe if we want to ask a question of the tarot, I'm going to take this away. Anybody got some questions? Yes, please.
I have really just a very practical question. When you say the great trumps and the small trumps, I have a deck. I think it's a weight deck. Do you separate those out before you shuffle them?
Yes.
Okay.
In this case, you take the. I always have mine. The minor arcana facing one way and the major arcana facing the other way, and that way we can shuffle the minor arcana and lay those out, and shuffle these and lay those out.
Okay.
I don't know. Wade has a layout that I've seen with those little things going down. I have not used the weight deck in a long time, but I do have one. I think he puts both in together, and so when the major arcana appear, it's like kaboom, you know. Yeah.
As you explained the lesser arcana, my mind just flies into the history of creation in the Bible. And it makes me think of how looking at it from that Jungian perspective, there's man, then there's Eve, which is his anima, and then they go to the rational naming of things, and then they fall from grace, but falling from grace is like predictable, natural outcome of growth. And they then have become wise through suffering in your fourth suit. It's just so different. Not thinking of the fall from grace as a new beginning, but just part of this natural process of growth.
Right. I agree. I would think that therefore, you could look at the book of Genesis and say the same kind of thing. It represents a developmental process in human development. And the fall, as you put it, most of the early writers talk of the fall as a felix culpa, a beneficent sin. That it was the beginning of consciousness and ego awareness, and that separation from being at one with nature, you see. And that has